conversation I want us to have in a bit, because Jen, you talked about that and the attitude the youth have, but then I'm looking at maybe our education system and our socialization. Would you blame them for where our youth are? That, you know, one would wait even for 10 years, you know, waiting for a job and not thinking about this money that is available, because there's youth fund, there's also Weather Fund, which I think they can also access.
There's Women Enterprise Fund, which is 70%.
And people are still waiting for 10 years to look for jobs. Is it our socialization?
I think partly it's our socialization and partly it's our education system. Reason being, I always say I was very fortunate to have studied in India. In India, the professors walk into class and tell you they are educating.
Don't say you're a product of Punjab.
Yeah. Yes, I'm a product of Punjab.
But it's a bad thing,
eh?
Absolutely.
You will be entered into a lot of trouble.
No. So what our professors always told us is they're preparing us to generate employment. So when I came back, I'd somehow forgotten that. Then I quickly remembered it and I decided I was going to become an employer. The second thing is I'm a vice chair of gender and youth at the KEPSA, at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. And I've gotten a chance to engage with a lot of young people. And most of them fault it on their parents. Because today you get a young person, an engineer come to my office and he wants to do his internship. And maybe you have your conditions. I can only give you internship if you'll meet your transport costs. However, I'll give you a stipend at the end of the month. And this guy goes back home and his parents tell him, no, you want to tell me that's how much they'll be giving you for a month, per month. So this young person will come back and tell you, my parents told me this is not good enough for me. That's because the parent wants the kid to be engineer, whoever, at the Kenya Highway Authority or something. So these young people have also been saying, why don't our parents just give us a chance to be who we are? If somebody says they're in entrepreneurship, and this is again another very unfortunate situation, it's taken me 10 years to make people understand that I am employed. Because every time there's an opening somewhere, somebody calls me to apply for it. And I'm thinking every day I report to my office, that means I'm employed. But I think it's our socialization that tells us you must be in a white-collar job. And again, I wonder, what is this white-collar job? Because I have a desk I report to every day. I thought that's white-collar enough. But again, people want to hear you're employed by these very big companies for them to accept that you're actually in employment. So I think that's a problem we have.
Two things that Jane brings out, and I think we're not talking about them enough. And because this is a family show also, I think it's a conversation that needs to be had at home as well. What is a job? I think we absolutely need to revisit the definition of what work is. Because unfortunately today, Jane does not work. She's a hustler.
According to Kenyan standards.
According to Kenyan standards. A guy who wakes up in the morning, goes to the small mechanical shop to repair bicycles
is jobless.
At a quarter, is jobless. It's a hustle. You only hustle. Anyone who is farming today is jobless, because that's a hustle. Nanim shamba. I think we need to revisit what jobs mean, and we need to begin to dignify work.
It's true.
Because, and I think nationally we made a strategic mistake. Obviously there's now a bit more focus on TVET, and we're investing a little bit more on TVET. But we made a strategic mistake 2003 when we said all these polytechnics, all these vocational institutes, let's turn them into universities, right? Because what's the conversation at home today? Ebusoma kwa nguvu and the university. But today, the real conversation, when you're looking for people to employ, because now you're an employer, you're a journalist. What's a skill? Is a skill that thing you study in school or that thing you can do?
You're able to do.
It's that what you can be able to do. And every employer is not looking for a degree.
It's true.
They're looking for a skill.
Reminds me, my mother is still pushing for a third and fourth degree.
Because it's not enough. It's never enough. That's how we've socialized our people. So two things. I think we need to change the narrative so that we begin to dignify work.
It's true.
And we begin to show people that what you do with your hands, anything you do, can be commercialized. If you're a singer, we can commercialize that, and that becomes your work. But number two, I think we need to have a very serious conversation about values, national values. Because we are such a consuming nation. Everybody just wants to finance their consumption, but they don't want to produce. So our young people today are very busy looking for quick chums, right? They don't understand that for you to make sustainable wealth, you must be involved in production. You must produce something.
Yeah.
These tables, chairs, doors. Today, Big Four, and I'm sure very soon we're talking about Big Four, has massive opportunities, particularly if you look at construction, which you are in, and I've already told you, Jen.
Affordable housing.
Affordable housing. The president wants to build 500,000 units. Do you know how many doors those are? Assuming each house has 7 doors.
It's true.
That's 3.5 million doors. Assuming each door is 3,000 shillings.
Wow, huge proportions.
Thank you.
Money.
So please, people, let's go make doors.
It's true. Very big opportunity.
It's a fantastic idea. But then I want us to come back to this youth fund so that now we can move to the Big Four and how the youth can be involved in terms of actualizing the Big Four. And it is the access to this money. For somebody out there who doesn't know and has tried Googling but still doesn't work, from step one, what do I need to access money from the youth fund, up until the point where Ronald Osumba or that officer down there stamps that LPO for me?
You need to have an idea. That's step one.
Step one.
Have an idea. Today we give three types of loan. One is, actually maybe there are 4. One is group loans, where you come together, 5 people, and you say, we want to start a chicken farm. Have that idea. Or you can be by yourself. You've registered your company like Jane. You say, I want to sell mobile phones and set up a shop in town.
Yeah.
Number 3, you can say, I want to start up fresh. It's a new company, so we take you through ideation. Number 4, you can say, I want to supply stationery, so LPO. So go to a government body, get LPO, come and do AGPO. Whichever way it is, you must have the business idea. And then you must have the opportunity. Walk to any of our offices. And today, physical offices, we have one in almost every county.
Yeah.
We have officers in every constituency, unless through natural attrition, somebody, moved on to another opportunity, Number 3, you can walk to any Huduma center, right? And you will be able to get a youth fund counter there and get assistance. Number 4, we are on the World Wide Web, right? So youthfund.go.ke,
Yes.
or Twitter, or Facebook, or Instagram. If you miss any of those guys, and Jane knows, I'm very quick on my Twitter handle. Even I know that.
I know that.
Inbox me, I will respond to you within the hour. Okay? So there are avenues. But like I said, we've realized that we are not reaching the farthest corners that we should. So 2 things we're doing about that. The first, we're establishing, I already explained, the digital platform. On your mobile phone, you'll be able to download an app, the way you've downloaded WhatsApp. So don't say you don't have bundles because you have for WhatsApp. You download and you will be able to access us. But number 2, we want to run a program for the hard-to-reach youth. And hard-to-reach youth are in informal settlements, mitaani, or very, very rural counties or marginalized areas. So we want to come up with a specific program for them in the shape and form of Huduma Mashinani, which takes us to where they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Jen, we're about to get into a very dicey subject here. And, how do you tell the youth to become entrepreneurs, people who should think outside the box, when people are mysteriously finding 15 million in their accounts for not working on
air?
Yeah, we had made very, very great strides, not until NYS happened. Because now everybody again asks you, where do you want to struggle so hard? Whereas you can just share your company name with somebody. But again, I would want to say, these things eventually catch up with you. And I don't think those are the values actually that have been instilled in us, for us to want to get rich quickly or make money that is not meant to be ours. That said, I also think it's time the government also got out and did more. I always want to challenge the government. We have like a very, very great opportunity called the Access to Government Procurement Opportunity. I have seen a Youth Enterprise Fund advertisement on TV. I've seen a Women Enterprise Fund advertisement on TV. But who has ever tried to reach out to the young people, the women and persons with disability, and told them there's an opportunity called the Access to Government Procurement Opportunity? Why I'm trying to say this is because so many of that group don't know it even exists. Just like Ronnie is saying, there are people in certain areas who don't even get this information. Recently, a young man asked me, when you keep talking about the Big Four, do you ever stop to ask yourself if young people even know what the Big Four is?
Yeah.
Because we assume we're having a conversation in Nairobi, and we assume down there it's disseminated in the same way we understand it. Similarly, this access to government procurement opportunity, if all the 40,000 companies are applying for these opportunities, there would be no chance of 1 or 2 companies get away with 60 million shillings. Because there would be so many people pursuing the same opportunity, the interest would be reduced.
Yeah.
But now what is happening, somebody needs a woman-owned company. They come to Jane, and Jane tells them, no, I don't do that kind of business. They'll easily find another one because the companies are very few. But if 40,000 of us are jamming those government offices looking for these opportunities, some way or other, the 60 million would have been reached out to 20 or 30 companies.
Yeah.
But
or maybe you find a good officer who just walk in and you get the tender to supply air, right?
No. That should not. In fact, I'm still hoping the government takes the harshest measures possible.
Absolutely.
Because that is the most unfortunate thing that
we're
happen.
watching.
And I would want to add, I think what even affected young people, especially on the youth the NYS issue, is there are still young people who ask. When Ronnie tells us he cannot get money to finance young people, it is also very ironical when, on the other hand, 60 million is being lost to somebody. I've told you my turning point was 700,000 shillings. And the Youth Enterprise Fund actually funded me 500,000 shillings. So divide that 60 million by 500,000 and imagine how many other genes would have come up in this country. So those are that's the math we need to be doing, and not just assume a figure is a figure.
I was actually surprised that one youth can eat an entire cow for a night. But anyway, that's a story for another day. Ronald Osumba, your officials are alleged to have gobbled up 10 million shillings. 10 million. And we want to empower the youth. 10 million.
It's unfortunate. I think, like Jane has said, public officers have a very difficult job. And I will tell you for free, not all public officers are bad apples. You have a lot of fantastic officers out there doing the job that they have been employed to do. Unfortunately, the rotten apple then, brings a smear to the entire public service. And I normally tell even at the Youth Fund, I tell my people, even you, one person seated at your desk, when you get involved in an impropriety, it won't just be you. It will be the whole lot of us. Today we are having to defend 7 officers who are either complicit or incompetent. All right? And this is the issue. We have been doing all these reforms. We are beginning to, reap the benefit of the reforms that we have put in. But as part of the reforms, we are also instituting new systems. When I got to the Youth Fund, everything was manual. There was nothing digital. So we've now put up a new enterprise resource planning system, which will allow us to have end-to-end digital processing of loans, of payments, of everything. It allows us more transparency. And in the process of migrating data into this new system, a few flags came up. And these flags were 4 groups have repeatedly received disbursements before they've even cleared the previous facilities. Already that's a red flag. And the CEO saw this, and he's a new CEO. He's been in the job for about a year or so. He raised the flag with us. We immediately instituted a special audit. The special audit picked out, the officers that were involved. The board sat immediately. This was in February. All this is happening in February. The board sat, and on March 2nd, the board took a firm decision. Suspend the 7, invite the DCI to conduct any criminal liability on their part, invite the National Treasury to conduct a full-scale audit on our entire loan portfolio. Do a reshuffle in the affected departments, because one of the issues that was raised in the audit was that a few people had overstayed their welcome in those departments. So we have done a complete reshuffle. This found us, by the way, in the middle of reorganizing the entire organization anyway. So this is what I want to say. We have, and we are not denying it, we have a 10 million at risk. Okay? We are going to pursue the officers who are involved, and we are going to pursue the youth who are involved. In fact, this was very sad for me because young people, and we are the first ones to go to the forefront to fight this corruption dragon, walked to my officers in the Mashinani and colluded with them and said, let's do this thing. But that just goes to show us that this rot is not just the president's fight.
Yeah.
It is all our fight.
Very quickly, as we wind up this matter, because your predecessor, Bruce Odhiambo, was hounded out of office because of a loss of 180 million shillings. That there's another pilferage of 10 million shillings. What assurance can you give to the youth in this country, and particularly also Kenyans, that this is something that is going to stop, and the actions, that you're following up on these actions to ensure that these 7 people, if they're found culpable, will actually, face justice?
By the way, nowadays even me, I work with files to protect myself. We are going to, this is a civil suit that we have instituted to recover the full 180 million, because that was obviously a collusion of the executive arm of the organization. So we are going to get this money back. On this specific issue, it is a collusion of youth groups with officers at the constituency level, right? This is theft, okay? We are going to pursue them for criminal liability, but we are also going to make sure that we recover, because groups are registered entities. We know who they are, where they are, their ID numbers, where their homes are. So we are going to recover. Right. I want to guarantee you, Jane, because Jane is one of my best customers, my success story, right? And the youth out there, that integrity is at the top of our culture change process at Youth Fund. We have done so much to institute changes. It breaks my heart that this one incident is almost muddying all the hard work that has gone in for the last 2 years. But we are going to survive this one. We are continuing with our reform agenda. We are going to ensure that by the time we are done, even as we go into the merged Biashara Fund, and I'm hoping that this is a culture we can carry into the new fund, we are going to ensure that we are a world-class organization, having a real impact on our young people, but with integrity and values at the forefront of our agenda.
Jane, are there changes you think perhaps you can, grow to Youth Fund to encompass them, perhaps to make it, easy to access these funds?
That's an open-ended question. She has many. She's always hammering me about what we need to.
Let her hammer you for now.
Actually, a lot of the reforms we've done is input from her. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything Ronnie has said. And I believe the Youth Enterprise Fund is there to change so many lives if it's actually applied the way it should be. There are very many constructive changes we think the Youth Enterprise Fund needs to take up. And one I would think is, first, a lot of publicity needs to be done out there. Because there's still this notion of it's only given to those who are known, yet that's the farthest thing from the truth. The second thing also is the Youth Enterprise Fund needs to partner with its employer, the government. Because I believe it's part of the government. Because especially on the on the issue of the LPOs, the Youth Enterprise Fund will pursue the young person instead of pursuing its colleague in the government. So you'll find a young person being put on CRB list, yet it's the sister who actually owes the young person. And I'll give you an example. When Ministry of Finance owes a young person 600,000, why would the Youth Enterprise Fund put the young person on CRB instead of approaching its counterpart and saying, you're actually affecting our finances, you need to pay us? I always put even an easier example and say, today if I supplied Sukuma Wiki to your wife and she refuses to pay me, you can't go to the police station and say, I owe you money. You need to talk to your wife to pay me the money for the Sukuma Wikis, then I pay you back. So those are some of the measures I think the Youth Enterprise Fund needs to take. However, from its employer, the main government, they need to also increase the allocation on the Youth Enterprise Fund. A young man challenged us recently, and he said, what would the Youth Enterprise Fund get? I think you get 2 billion per year.
305 million.
305 million per year. And NYS, which hosts 15,000 youth, gets 20 billion per year. That's where the misappropriation is happening. I think the 20 billion should actually be coming to the Youth Enterprise Fund, which is supposed to serve
and we will take
all
care
these
of
youth.
it.
all these youth in the country. However, they also need to prove to us that the 10 million needs to pass.
Once we have the 180 and 10 million,
10 million,
then we can talk about the 20 billion and how it can be divided. But then very quickly, because we have the next 5 minutes, let's talk about, the Big Four agenda and the opportunities that exist for the youth in the Big Four agenda, because there's manufacturing, there's food security, there's universal healthcare, and then there's that affordable housing. How do we encompass the youth in this particular agenda? Because every time the president mentions it, it looks like it's a big man agenda.
And that's where we missed the point. In fact, the president, in his unveil of this thing in December, was very clear. It is precisely because of the youth that we have defined the Big Four agenda. It is not that how should youth find themselves in the Big Four. It is about the youth. So the youth need to stake their claim. I always say, money follows policy. We now, for the first time, have a very clear 4-piece economic agenda from the president. There's no need to struggle and think, what should I be investing in? It's in the 4, right? So we need to, first and foremost, be aware that we are in it. It's not that we are trying to find our way into it. That said, I know that all the players in the Big Four are today, developing the frameworks to ensure that youth are at the center. Whether it is in universal healthcare, what role do the youth play in ensuring that every household is registered? I mean, we can do what insurances do. I come, I register a household, I get my commission, right? For example, as a sales agent for NHIF, all right? But I think there are many opportunities in housing. I've already talked about those, right? In food and nutrition security, this is a big play. Today, we need to start thinking, how do you fit into the value chain? It is not just about growing it. It's about collecting it, logistics. It's about marketing it. It's about adding value, whether it is processing or etc., etc. At the Youth Fund, we are plugging into the housing. We will eventually find a play across all the Big Four. But today our focus is on developing a framework for housing. Not because Jane is in construction, but because we were invited to the table through the ministry formally. And we are saying, how do we support the designated industries, whether that is doors, welders, making of windows, shelves, and we want to create fabrication labs where young people can be able to lease space and time and create and supply to the contractors. We will lock, whether it is 10%, 15%, 30%, whatever it is, of all these supplies to those contractors. Whether it is big, what did you call them? Big men.
Yeah, big men agenda.
The big men must buy from young people.
Absolutely. Jen, obviously the perception out there, because I call it a perception because there's no truth, is that this Big Four agenda involves big money. So if you have to invest in it or you have to be a participant, there must be big money for it. But from where you see it, in this Big Four agenda, where do you see most of the opportunities, for the youth who don't have this big money?
Let me start by stating, just like Ronnie has said, the Big Four actually was created for the youth, and it's going to mostly benefit young people. I keep saying the biggest indicator the Big Four agenda will have is the number of employment opportunities it shall have created. And I would want to start by saying no big money is required in the Big Four. Look at an agenda like the universal healthcare. There'll be increase in infrastructure. How many young people are prepared to do the construction in the hospitals? There'll be finances, the NHIF, which Ronnie mentioned. There'll be supplies. All these hospitals will need to be supplied with food, they'll need to be supplied with curtains, they'll need to be supplied with linen. All these hospitals will need to be supplied with non-surgicals. How much are gloves? Gloves go for like 10 bob. So any person looking at these opportunities will be able to pursue them. The only thing is the myths have to be gotten rid of. The perceptions have to be gotten rid of, and everybody needs to pursue this opportunity. On the side of the government, let's talk manufacturing and stop looking at the big companies here or the big industries here. Let's remember, many countries are succeeding because of cottage industries, which are creating a lot of employment for people. Today, when a young person wants to test a product at KBC, and Ronnie, maybe you need to help them on this. A young lady told me she required to pay 25,000 shillings. And I keep saying you can talk about the Big Four agenda, but the minute a bottleneck happens, you have killed that
and
dream.
Government policies being very punitive against new businesses.
So you look at the bottlenecks that they have to overcome for them to actually start a business. And I can state this with confidence because I know what I incur every year. If it's the licenses, we go to low-cost housing. If it's the low-cost housing, our youth will require to have the NCA certificate. Until the NCA registration fees come down, the Big Four agenda on housing remains a pipe dream. Today, I'll tell you, for you to register at the lowest level of NCA, you require nothing less than 20,000. Every year, a young person, a woman, youth, or persons with disability, or even any contractor in construction, requires to go for compulsory training every year at NCA, which you have to pay 10,000 shillings. If you don't pay, you don't get your license renewed for the next year. So what are all these bottlenecks we've put? And simple math, if this is supposed to be for revenue generation, ask yourself, if they reduced it to 2,000, 1 million youth would be able to apply for it. Whereas in its current state of 20,000, maybe only 10,000 or even 1,000 youth have been able to apply for this opportunity. So let the bottlenecks come down. The opportunities are so many. All right. Thank you.
I'm pressed for time because we have even overrun. But there are very two important questions, Ronnie, I want you to answer because they've been brought. There are so many questions, obviously, but this is the most pressing, particularly from Homa Bay. Homa Bay doesn't have a library, and we have applied for loans to start a library. This is Bruce Mackey. Homa Bay purchases school uniforms from other counties. We have applied for loans to construct our own factory to start making our own uniforms, but to no avail. How can you help this gentleman?
Let them come to me. So let them, let them contact me. I will be able to assist with that one because obviously, particularly like she has said, we want to support a lot of young people who are going into manufacturing because manufacturing has massive potential for creating jobs. So we totally will support.
Bruce Mackey, contact Ronnie Osumba. Very quickly, somebody here is asking, and I think this has been the most consistent question. What qualification do I need to get to the loan?
To be a Kenyan youth, that's all.
That's just it.
You need to be a Kenyan youth and you need to have an idea. The rest we will pick up with you. We will help you build the capacity. We'll help you register your business. We'll help you develop, a marketing plan, sales plan, etc. Just come.
Somebody's asking about the name of the app and when you intend to launch it.
Well, I'm forcing this one on my team. It's Y Mobile.
Y Mobile is the name of the app.
Like Youth Mobile. Why?
Should be rolled up when?
Soon.
So your last one, Ronnie, as we head to Jane.
I think we live in very exciting times. I think our young people are energetic. They just need our support, and they need to know that we are doing something. Jane has mentioned a lot of things. We have said all these things. We need a policy framework that makes doing business easy for youth. The ease of doing business in Kenya today is improving. Every day, the index is improving. We've just moved from number, I think, 150 to 80, and we're targeting to move to 50. But the ease of doing business for youth and women needs a very specific policy intervention. And I have made several commitments in different fora that we need to look at various aspects of it. We probably need to come up with an act of parliament called Small Companies Act or something like that.
All right, very interesting. Your last word, very quickly.
Thank you. My last word would be like Ronnie said, this is the best time to be a youth, woman, or persons with disability in Kenya. The opportunities are so immense. Let's not give up. Let's take them up. As I conclude, let me also state, ease of doing business is so good in Kenya. However, the cost of doing business needs to be checked. When I supply to an institution and I take a whole year to be paid, that affects the cost of my doing business. The interest you have to pay on loans becomes too much, and that is why the youth, women, and PWDs are giving up on this opportunity. Let's up our game as the government and see how to ease these opportunities for them. Thank you.
Wow.
Too short.
Ronnie, I know when you have such animated conversation, that time goes, because we have actually used 45 minutes, you can't imagine. We have used 45 minutes in this conversation, but most importantly, of course, you can see the impact through the feedback that is coming in, and the people we've been, we've spoken to, and I would use big words here, and I would say, I've heard a scintillating and tantalizing conversation. It's time for us to wind up Family Matters. Thank you very much for joining us. See you tomorrow. God bless you.
Thank you.
Santé.